All right. So, gentlemen, you guys have probably better than anyone else in this room tremendous insight into what's going on in the online payment space over time. Can you talk a little bit about, what is the trend you're seeing in online payments or offline as well, payments made to online sellers, I mean, and what are the trends within the trends? What areas are you seeing a lot of increase in? What methods of payment are starting to stand out, et cetera?
As I mentioned, for BPI, we noticed that there was an increase in the e-commerce billings from 2011 to compared to with 2012. We also noticed that the spike in the e-commerce, especially for the local e-commerce merchants, when we started to it started to pick up last quarter of 2011. So when the buying sites actually was very dynamic and very aggressive in marketing their products. So it was a carryover from last quarter of 2011 to 2012, the spike in the billings for e-commerce.
Right. As far as we see the market trends is concerned, that there are some new kind of changes in the past, I think, recent 1 or 2 years. First of all, I think that before time, fraud seems to be majority is by those syndicates, big gangs, people who want to take big profit out of this. But nowadays in Asia, it seems that to be a small, medium-sized cover fraud cases seems to be getting more in the market. And secondly, it's also industry-wide. I think in earlier days, a lot of fraud cases targeting a lot of the airlines, the travel sectors. But because of the evolutions of e-commerce model these days, they're more buying sites. People, there are more different kinds of fraudulent transactions for e-tailers, group buying sites too lately in the recent months.
Well, hello. 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 Sorry. For me, the trend that we started seeing e-commerce really grow from around early 2011, not the latter part of the year. And I think e-commerce in the Philippines really has a lot to thank to the group buying sites, because at the end of the day, as Jack mentioned before, the only e-commerce in the Philippines was practically buying a ticket from Cebu Pacific. And it was not until the group buying sites came in wherein people can buy a deal as low as 99 pesos. And that gave them a very low barrier to entry, and they would just try it. I mean, if nothing happens, nothing gets delivered, hey, it was only 99 pesos. Now, as for the penetration, I mentioned credit card penetration is still very low. It helps, I think, that the banks are now pushing a little bit more for the debit Visa and the electronic MasterCard, because it's still, unless the banks suddenly just drop their criteria for acquiring a card holder, you're not going to see a drastic increase in credit card usage in the Philippines. So the only way for it to increase, in my opinion, is if more people start going into alternative payments, short of the credit card itself becoming more and more popular.
And that's actually a really interesting point. So I've heard anecdotally from people. I've heard anecdotally from people at BPI and BDO in the past that there's something like 5 to 7% credit card penetration rates in this country. Are those numbers increasing? And if not, what about like prepaid debit cards or similar cards that can be used for online purchases but that are not, in fact, credit-based?
For BPI, we have, I think last year we launched our prepaid e-credit for e-commerce transactions, and the target market for those are supposedly those persons that are not that are building still their credit ratings. So as mentioned earlier, of course the banks will not lower that bar in their risk scoring, in their acquiring of credit card holders. I guess the threshold would still be the same from this year and even onwards. But we have launched an e-prepaid products that can be used specifically for online transactions.
So you're basically saying that the wealth level would have to increase so that the risk profile of the average consumer would be lower, because you don't think that the banks are going to increase their risk appetite to try and expand their card base anytime in the near future. Is that accurate?
Yes, but the analogy also of issuing prepaid cards is we can see their transaction behavior, the way they loads to their prepaid cards. So that's some sort of pseudo scoring of their potential income that they can load their prepaid cards in such a frequency. So you can possibly migrate those prepaid card holders from that platform to credit card holders as well.
Great. All right. I know we're actually running over a little bit into lunch, so can we just open it up to the floor for any questions?
Hi, my name is Jose. I'm from Prudential Financial. I spent the last few years of my career in Japan working on their life insurance businesses there. I'm also a certified systems auditor, so security is something of professional interest to me. Now, this question is directed mainly towards Mr. Doroteo and maybe also to Mr. Chiang. Now, with regards to law enforcement, how has the partnership been between businesses involved in e-commerce and local law enforcement? Would you say that the partnership has been good, or has it been lacking in certain aspects? And if it has been lacking, where do you think this partnership should improve?
Let me put it this way. For the Credit Card Association with the Philippines, we partner also with the law enforcement agencies. We work with the transnational crime and the AFCCD, anti-bank fraud crimes division of CIDG, and also with NBI. But to the how effective it is, that's another thing. First of all, I think there should be also an enabling law, and the government, aside from Republic Act 8484, there is no other laws that would prosecute these criminals. The cybercrime law is still had been put on hold, so the cybercrime law is a lot stiffer compared to the Republic Act 8484. So I guess one umbrella, a form of executive order coming from the Office of the President, similar to the time that was issued during the time of Mrs. Arroyo, that there was an executive order 573 creating anti-fraud task force, mandating the Secretary of the Department of Justice to oversee the rise or the prosecution of these credit card fraud-related cases. So unless there is a super body that the specific KRA is to deliver and to put behind bars these criminals, I think proliferation of fraud will still be in our midst up to this time.
In our case for Dragonpay, we don't really have the concept of a chargeback because we deal mainly with debit-based payment. So if somebody goes to an SM payment counter, gives his money, that's it. You can't take your money back. For internet banking, I mentioned that the rules governing internet banking is very similar to ATM, wherein there's also no repudiation. We've had cases like, I can count with one hand, people complaining that their bank account was used without their permission, but we always contest it with the bank, and at the end of the day, it goes back to the argument of the person knows the user ID, he knows the password, he knows the transaction password, which in some banks is different from the login password, and some banks even have two-factor authentication, like RCBC Access One. It even asks you for a secret question. So there's so many things that you really cannot argue that it was not you. So it doesn't really apply so much. But to share with you my previous experience with Moscom, when we were dealing with credit cards, the usual problem is when it comes to prosecution, the merchant usually don't want to go through the trouble of going through the court hearings and all that. We got involved at one time in an entrapment operation the NBI got involved. We worked with Cebu Pacific because the guy who committed the fraud was doing it in several sites, and they hit us, they hit Cebu Pacific, and we got together, put up an entrapment with the assistance of Air 21. Actually, the NBI person dressed up as an Air 21 person to deliver a package, and the moment the person got it, he got caught. But again, that was a special case because the company that was leading the entrapment was Cebu Pacific. They had their own legal department, so for them it sunk cost. But we did have smaller merchants who've lost digital SLR cameras that they sent to a fraudulent address. And you know, as Joseph mentioned earlier, if you only sell 10 gadgets and you lose one, there goes your entire profit. And the fact is, smaller merchants don't want to go through the trouble of the prosecution process. Just hiring a lawyer will cost you, what, you know, an acceptance fee probably more than the cost of that digital SLR camera. So it's sad, but usually merchants who get hit by credit card fraud don't really go through that much trouble. Yeah, and I agree. There should be something more in the law that they don't pass the cost to the merchant to pursue a fraud case.
So maybe I share some more things we have been working closely with the law enforcement by organizations in Asia. Basically, being a payment gateway platform vendor, so once we get a case report that there's an investigation to kick off, the number will facilitate the police to do the very exhaustive database the search to take out all the potential risky kind of transactions related to that card, that IP or a name for supporting for the law enforcement. And secondly, is that the fraud may not only rely on the sometimes it's not just happen on the consumer side. It could also happen to the merchant side. Sometimes the merchant you're using a fake ID or using some bad business practice to open an online store, and then after they get the money from the bank or payment company, they run away. So this occasionally this merchant fraud could happen in Asia. That we will report to the bank, and subject to the bank decisions and our decisions whether we would like to bring it report to the police. I think the last of all is that I think there are different governments to take a very serious attention of cybercrime, so that once in a while they're also actively organizing some events, conference. So we will definitely will also be we would be welcome to share our experience, how some of the technologies these days, how the best practice in the market, the trade can help to share our experience with the other business operators in the market. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I believe we do have a text question. If we can just roll the text question, please. Question to BPI panelists. What is the ratio of credit cards processed offline and online among BPI merchants? And who is your biggest online merchant?
I can only answer in terms of the billings that the e-com merchants had contributed to our issuing side. As I mentioned during my presentation, the billings that we had for e-commerce merchants is 7.4 billion. Our total billings, I guess, is at around issuing billings is about 83 billion. So from there, it's only about 10%, less than 10% of our total billings. But the growth is about 40% compared to our e-com billings of 2011, and e-commerce billings is growing faster compared to traditional brick-and-mortar merchants. Our billings in the brick-and-mortar space is only about 19%, but our e-commerce billings is growing by about 40% year on year.
7.4 billion net of travel, correct, from e-commerce merchants for BPI?
I guess that's still inclusive of travel merchants.
That's still inclusive of travel, 7.4
Yeah.
billion.
How do you deal with the identity theft back here in the Philippines?
Well, in the case of internet banking, usually the customer actually don't contact us; they contact their bank. So it's the bank that contacts us and asks us to do an investigation on what happened. And again, our argument goes back to the person used the correct user ID, they used the correct password. We have to assume he's the correct person. So from our end, we always just tell our merchant, hey, once you get paid, you stay paid. We do not do chargebacks from our end. But I guess it's different for the case of credit cards.
In the Philippines, there is no specific law for identity theft, and unlike in the US, that they have specific laws on that. So I think for the laws that could be applied if you prosecute here the person for committing fraud using identity theft is you can charge possibly the person of estafa, of violating Republic Act 8484, which specifically governs the issuance and use of credit cards in the Philippines. So I guess those are the two basic laws that could be charged against that person, or another is withholding his true identity, but sometimes those are still aggregated as one single act of committing fraud, which can be aggregated as related to Republic Act 8484 of that Republic Act.
Thank you. How about in regard to secured credit card? Have you ever heard about the secured credit card?
You mean it's PIN over EMV? Or?
Yeah, in regards to you've been telling that some of the Filipinos doesn't have a credit card. So what do you think about secured credit card? Secured credit card is like you put 5,000 pesos. They will give you a credit card, just as Visa, and you can use it internationally when you buy something.
You mean it's a back-to-back loan?
No, it's not
it's
a
a
loan.
secured loan. It's a secured loan against...
No, it's a secured credit card.
Yeah. We are giving that too. We have also credit cards secured also by deposit.
Oh, okay. I think that's it.
Credit cards in the Philippines are secured, correct? Most, if not all, corporate credit cards in the Philippines are secured by assets in a bank account, correct? It's not a true line of credit.
Yes, for corporate credit cards, yes.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because there was a recent Visa MasterCard ruling that basically says if somebody pays using a corporate credit card, you cannot contest any chargebacks. So that is a big problem for merchants, because if somebody gets to steal a corporate card and uses it on your site, you cannot dispute it.
That's really interesting. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think we're transitioning into lunch. I'm getting the go sign. Okay. All right, good. Thank you very much to our distinguished panelists. Can we get a round of applause, please?